And we've realized that we've been buried, but we're like seeds and we're starting to grow, and we're growing uncomfortable. We're growing uncomfortable of being in that dark confines of the cave where you're telling us how to think. You're telling us how to behave. You're telling us that there's monsters out in the real world. You're telling us to be pitted against each other by race, by identity, by
gentlemen,
what's going on? It's a beautiful day to be alive, to open your eyes to the realities surrounding you. I want you to imagine being locked in a cave. You're held captive. And the only thing that you're able to lay your eyes on are the paintings on the cave's wall. And they depict this monstrous reality outside of the cave where everything's in chaos. And so the person that's kidnapped you and enslaves you comes in to feed you, and you ask what's going on, and they say, oh man, you're so lucky to be in here because it's chaotic out there. I'm going to go back out there and I'm going to try to make it good and better for you. This is the Better Man channel, where we choose to light up some damn torches, step outside of the cave of enslavement, and begin writing our own damn paintings and looking at reality for ourselves. We live in a society where government for so long has deemed us as these irresponsible herd, almost as if we're just running around bewildered at what it takes and the wisdom and knowledge to live a good life. We have to have someone to depend upon to tell us what it requires to be successful, what it requires to be at peace, what it requires to gain economic gain, what it requires to have political leadership. They deem us these irresponsible herd that would harm ourselves and others if we were let out of the cave, out of the corral. And so I want you to imagine where this idea came from. I don't think it was malicious in the beginning necessarily. Imagine you're a parent and you have a child, a 4-year-old child, and they're wanting to go outside, but you have things to do inside, business to take care of. And you know, if they go outside, they could go into the street, they could get ran over, they could get hurt, they could fall down, someone could take them. And so we begin to kind of manufacture and manipulate this consent from them to keep them in safety. We restrain their perimeters so that we can keep an eye on them and know that they're safe. So maybe we turn on the cartoons to distract them. Maybe we play a game with them. Maybe we even kind of tell a little white lie. Hey, you know, outside it's going to rain, or there's a bad person out there, or what have you. We kind of construct this manufactured consent from them where they say, oh, okay, I trust you. You're bigger. You know what's going on. And so they follow the distractions that we give them, the cartoons, the cereal, the food, what have you. From the beginning of time, I want you to think maybe from our founding fathers in America. These were the intelligent men, man. They crafted a great constitution. They crafted some wise, intelligent proclamations that we still live by for the most part. These were intelligent men that were afforded the opportunity of wisdom, whether it came through their riches or family or what have you. And for the most part, in those days, there were a lot of uneducated people in the masses. A lot of people couldn't read. A lot of people couldn't write. Very uneducated, not meaning they didn't possess wisdom, just uneducated in the terms of what it took to run a country or to craft a constitution. And so that's justifiable in that sense. And I think the founding fathers had a good idea and sense of meaning for the people. They were for the people in its truest sense, in the truest sense that it can be. They wanted people to have freedom and liberty. But as time has moved on, we've seen a shift from for the people to for us. And as always, with power comes the opportunities for greed and corruption. And we see that, man. It's fairly easy to recognize. I don't care what party you belong to, what race you are, what gender. We can see that the elite are corrupt. And we see that their motives aren't necessarily for the people. Their motives are for their agenda. And one way to keep the masses and the population at bay and to keep them in that cave in the darkness is to begin to manipulate and manufacture this consent for us to just hand over our sovereignty, to hand over our power, because there is power in the population. There's power in the majority. There's power in being sovereign, in being free and standing up and saying, hey, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. So how do they keep us in the modern day in that cave where we just look at the pictures they want us to see on the wall? One of those is media. From day one, media has been influenced so that it can paint this picture for us to confine us in that cave where we only see what they would have us to see. And you say, well, wait a minute. The media is kind of a public servant. It's there for our good, right? How surely they're not wanting to corrupt us. They're here to serve us and show us, that there was a fire on 6th Street and that a car was broke in on 31st Street and that COVID has killed 10 people today, right? First and foremost, news medias are not public servants. They're private-owned companies. And a company wants to make profit. The news is there for profit. Therefore, they're not going to show any news that's going to hinder their profits, to remove their clout, to diminish their power. And second of all, they have advertisers that they have to please, right? Just for a very easy example, imagine McDonald's is pouring millions of dollars into advertisement. They're not going to want the media to present them in a dark, malicious way. They're not going to want them to run segments that constantly say fast food can cause cancer, fast food kills, fast food causes heart attacks, fast food causes obesity, fast food is diminishing your life. Advertisers are not going to pour money into a media that paints them in a dark, malicious manner. So the media always has to have this in mind because they are there for profit. And then there's these entities and corporations that have their agendas that back this media. And they're not going to want them to paint them in a less than manner when they're backing them with money, when they're backing them with the opportunity to rub elbows in whatever agenda they're wanting to follow through. And for so long, we've been blindly following this propaganda as if it is for our best interest and not recognizing that it's only there to keep us in that cave, to keep us buried in that dark pit. But what they fail to realize is the population is gaining some wisdom. And we've realized that we've been buried, but we're like seeds and we're starting to grow and we're growing uncomfortable. We're growing uncomfortable of being in that dark confines of the cave where you're telling us how to think. You're telling us how to behave. You're telling us that there's monsters out in the real world. You're telling us to be pitted against each other by race, by identity, by party. You're creating these identity politics and telling us it's us against them and them against us. And you better just stay here because we've got this under control. Fear. That's the number one tactic in restraining the power of the majority. If I can divide you, if I can keep you in that constant fear where you're in the cave and the painting on the walls depicting the world in chaos and monstrous activity, then you're going to create, or that creates a dependency upon me because we're the powerful. We've been in power for so long. Trust us, we know what to do because there's wars, there's rumors of wars, there's a new pandemic, there's this race crisis going on, there's an identity crisis on. Stay safe in the confines of your little cave and we've got this under control. It's that sleight of hand the magician pulls where we're over here stuck in the misery created for us so that they can live in the wonders created by them. But, I'm not always for this global connection where we can always be connected and always on the social media. But one thing with that is that the population now has access to talk to someone 1,000 miles across the country that can say, hey, whatever the news is portraying here, that's not the truth. It's not the reality. That's just a painting on the cave wall they're trying to present you. This is what's really going on. So we have opportunities nowadays to go outside of the news media and connect with other people and get the real story. The first step in becoming free, the first step in lighting that torch and getting the hell out of this cave of darkness they've stuck us in, is to begin to research, study out what's really going on. Never take things on face value. And the premise behind this show is for better men, or for men to become better men. And in doing so, we do have to be aware of the culture around us. We do have to be aware of those beliefs that we possess and why they're even there. Why have I held onto this one belief for so long? And for example, it could be racism. It could be that white people hate me, that Native Americans hate me, that black people hate me, that I'm taught that I'm supposed to hate them, and there's all this difference. Where does that belief come from? Why is that being pushed upon us? And that's just an example. There's 100 other examples out there that are constantly bombarding us and distracting us from the true purpose. And you ask, what's the true purpose? Well, exactly. Many of us are caught up in that, and you see all these self-help coaches and all these mentors and all these books. And I'm not hating on them, but why is there a need for all of that? Because so many of us are lost. We're stuck. We know there's more than the cave where we're only looking at the world through the lens of our captor. We've been held in bondage for so long that we're looking for something. We know there's more. We know there's more than the writings on the wall. We know there's a reality outside in the real world that's far beyond that limited painting that's been assembled for us and manufactured our consent to just go along. And that's the key word. We think we're free, but really our consent has been manipulated. We follow the whims of others. We follow the philosophies of others without researching our own. And many times we don't know what is outside the box because we're comfortable in that box. Someone else will run the country for me, and they have my best interest at heart. We've been taught that. We believe that. And God, it turns your world upside down when you realize, oh my God, there's some corruption. There's some greed. And I've been trapped in this box, and I've been comfortable. They give me distractions, like that parent that distracts the irresponsible little child because they don't want them to get hurt. We think the government, we think the powerful have our best interest at heart so that we don't get hurt. No, they have their interest at their own heart so that they don't get hurt and they stay in power, and we're little pawns, that bewildered herd that if we get outside of the cage, we're going to disrupt their intentions, their motives. And don't get me wrong, I believe at the founding of this country that those were great men that weren't necessarily corrupt. I'm sure there was some, but they wanted the best interest for the country. They were removing themselves from the tyranny of others. They wanted liberty and freedom for all, and they set that up in that manner. But as time goes on, corruption creeps its way in, and we see the powerful swimming in this pool of incessant greed and corruption. And they get caught up in that, and they get swept away, where it's not about you and me. It's about them and their agenda. In order for us to get out of this cave, we got to light up the torch, man. We got to say there's something more than what I've been told. There's something more than what I'm just seeing, the paintings on the wall. I'm going to light my own damn torch. I'm going to be the man that goes out and sees the world for what it is, see the world for what I can make it be, and own my own damn life. I'm not going to be influenced by outside sources. I'm not going to be stuck in this fear-mongering where I just surrender my rights. I'm going to take back my consent. You're not going to manipulate me and manufacture me into consenting to your agenda. I'm going to take ownership of my life. I love you guys. You'll hear from me next episode.